Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook, and I have a guy after my own heart. He is resilient. He is on time. He is good looking even. He is also the Chief Operating Officer at Marco's Pizza. Great background to be an entrepreneur. The thing that I picked up on most is, as much as you're in the pizza business, it seems like to me, Tony, besides having the right name for the business, because there's no better name than Tony to be in a pizza business, you're really in the people business. And I'd love to hear from you how that relationship of owning the customer has not only taken you to the pandemic with success, over 1,000 locations, but through the pandemic as well.
Yeah. Well, in any business, doesn't matter what you sell, you typically have to interact with people. And when I sit in front of new franchisees, is a good example. One of the very first things I tell them is, if you don't like people, the hospitality business, the restaurant business is probably not the right choice for you, right? Because some of the very first things you're going to do is you're going to go out and hire a team of 30 to 50 people. You got to interview all those people. You got to like those people to want to put them on your team. They got to like you to want to join your team. And before you know it, you're out selling pizzas, working with schools, working with other businesses, working with municipalities, working with parents of some of your employees. And so you're going to be dealing with people day in and day out. And the most successful franchisees that we have are the ones that understand the value of people and understand that when you put people first, things start to click for you. That loyalty levels start to build for you. Retention on your employee side starts to build. And overall, it takes a little time, but you start to realize tremendous success. People begin to know who you are in your communities, and they become very, very loyal to you, your pizza, your brand, and it's a winning formula. But you got to put people first above all else. We sell a pizza. It's a great pizza. It doesn't matter what you sell, frankly. What you sell has to be great. It's got to be competitive, but your edge is in the people, for sure.
Well, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the ingredients of that, because a lot of people talk about treating people well, and we don't dig deeper to say, okay, what are some of the things that you do and you teach and you empower to treat people well? What are some of the key things to do?
Well, first, it's got to be woven in our culture, right? So we go through 5 cultural beliefs. The very first thing, the top priority for us is to become a people-first organization. We preach it to everybody that comes in our organization. First and foremost, we place a high value on people, and we want them to feel valued and part of the team. We want them to know that they're contributing as part of the team. We train them when they come on board for employees, and we want to make sure that what we're teaching them is to treat the guest right. It's that whole when you hire right and you train them right, they tend to treat the consumer right and create the right experience for the consumer, and you tend to get that discretionary effort over time as they get more productive. But it's that first and foremost, it's woven within our culture. The second thing I think is very important is it becomes the primary filter for us. How does this affect our teams? How does this affect our communities? How does this affect our guests? Those being the top 3 priorities that we kind of filter through first. And then we talk about how does it affect the business? How does it affect the bottom line? Those kinds of things. So it's also important to know that everybody has a life, and they've got families to go home to. They've got other priorities, and when you can respect and honor those, they tend to, again, be more loyal to you as an employer, more loyal to you as a guest. And it really is about walking the talk. It's not just an employer-employee relationship. I think if you narrow it to that degree, you're going to miss the nuances. You're going to miss the importance of respecting that person as a person and giving them the things they need in life beyond just a job and a paycheck and those other things. So it is critically important that you put them as a top priority. So when this pandemic hit is a good example. The very first thing that we started to contemplate is the safety and the health of our employees. That was the very first thing we started to talk about. How do we keep them safe? How do we keep them healthy? How do we keep them from preventing getting the virus at Marco's at least, and whatever we can do externally? Those were our filters. And so we talk about it all the time. We invest a lot of our capital dollars in it. And we're measuring ourselves constantly as to how we're showing up as employers, not just Marco's franchising, but every franchisee. we measure all those levels of employee satisfaction and how we're doing at delivering being a brand they work for. And that's all important.
It's so interesting because Marcos has always been known to have goodwill towards the community. And a lot of the forward-facing cultural things that you've done to build such a strong organization, one that's based on values and principles. Now, when through the pandemic, some of those cultural disciplines had to be turned within. And goodwill is one of them. What are some of the things that you are doing, to turn within with that same culture of goodwill towards the franchisees and the employees and the owners as well?
Yeah, we've been extremely fortunate from the outset that Marcos was positioned to do well during a crisis or a pandemic. This particular pandemic, we were already set up as a delivery mechanism, so we can deliver a hot, fresh pizza to you in under 30 minutes, and it's a high quality pizza. So when they started the stay-at-home orders, shelter-at-home orders, we were positioned well. We were ready to take on the challenge of feeding more folks. And so the biggest hurdle we faced, frankly, was getting the franchisees and their teams to believe that they were going to be safe. So the very first thing we had to do was mobilize masks, right? Something as simple as masks, making sure the supply chain was full of hand sanitizer, creating barriers in terms of safe areas for employees. Suddenly the plexiglass barriers started to pop up to make people feel comfortable coming to work. And then of course we did the curbside pickup, the contact-free delivery to make sure the guests were feeling safe and secure. And then we had to build the technologies around those things to keep them safe and distanced. And so we've been very, very fortunate. We've been very, very successful through this pandemic, and it's been because we've focused on the safety and health of employees. We focused on the safety and health of our consumers. We built the technology around it. We mobilized our team instantly. It's funny. I think the biggest challenge entrepreneurs may face in the future is if you own these big office buildings, right, that people like us lease, right, because we've discovered we can live without it. I mean, we're out there in a virtual world just like this as an example, highly productive, highly engaged, and still getting things done without having to go to the office every day and churn it out. And in a world where it's changing so fast by the day, you have to be flexible and adaptable, and you have to give people the option to be home with their families when they need to be, and take care of those personal situations. And when you do that, it tends to come together well for you.
It's so interesting too, in compressed times of uncertainty, where things can change, especially in hospitality business, within one notification. One quick notification, your entire business changes. And obviously you're adaptable, resilient. You've built the systems and technologies in order to support that. But one of the key components that a lot of people don't realize that I see Marcos having is transparency. Because when things create compressed uncertainty, when there is accelerated change, the arms and legs start growing within franchisees, franchisors, employees, customers, everybody. And so I think it's so important not only just to manage expectations, which you do so well, but how important is transparency throughout the system?
Well, and I'd even extend it to authenticity, right? It's transparent and authentic, right? And so you can go out and pretend to be involved in the community for a little bit of period of time, but people pick up on that. But when you were out there before and then a crisis hit and you're out there during the crisis, suddenly it's authentic, right? They know they can rely on you. So we've preached since the outset of Marcos that we are a community-based local mom and pop pizzeria. We want our franchisees to be embedded in their communities, own your 3 and 5 mile circles, get out there and be part of the schools and the fundraising, raising dollars for their schools, be out there with the sports leagues and meeting with the local business communities and being part of all of that every day. So when a crisis hits, suddenly Susie and Bob across the way, right, is having a tough go of it. And you know who they are, and you can reach out to them. You know who the teachers are in the schools. You know who the coaches are on the ball fields. And so when you are offering help, it's sincere, it's transparent, and frankly, communities have come to rely on it. And we've got tons of great stories in this brand. I'm so proud of our franchisees when times are tough, they just step right into it and they become heroes to their communities. And the most recent is Shamal Kanawita, it's a tough name to say, in Colony, Texas. I don't know if you saw him, he's on the Regis Philbin show not so long ago, because again, he was out feeding families, and he posted on Facebook saying, hey, listen, I'm not looking to sell you pizza, but if you need a meal, contact me here on Facebook and we will get you a meal. And then, of course, through that whole process, you learn that he feeds the local food banks on a monthly basis. He's donating pizzas to the local food. So again, it's organic. It's natural for our organization. We want to be reaching out and helping and being part of our communities. And that's such an intricate part of being successful during crises. And let's be honest, 2020 has been full of them already, right? In terms of crisis, we talk about the pandemic, but the social unrest that's been out there, and now suddenly we've got hurricanes that seem to be lining up in the Caribbean by the dozens. I mean, it's just one after another. And again, this team, this brand is resilient and passionate about what we do. And we're always focused to make sure that those that treat us well are being treated well back. And that's part of that transparency and authenticity, I think.
And what's nice is you empower those personal agendas, but you do it through accountability. And I was really curious on how you utilize accountability in order to effectuate those personal agendas.
Well, I shared with you the 5 cultural beliefs we have. Another one of those is what we call real talk, right? Getting to it, not sugarcoating things. Let's sit in a room and have an open, honest discussion, recognizing that we're filtering in a way that should be what I need to do differently. I shouldn't be having a conversation with you, David, about what you need to be doing differently. It's about what more can I do to help David succeed, not what more David can do to help. And again, you've got to have that same mindset. And when you're there, you start getting to root causes of problems and those kinds of things. But I also promote what we call a productive dispute conversation. The last thing I want is a room full of yes people, right? I tell people all the time, I don't have all the answers and I don't pretend to have all the answers, right? But when I make a decision or the brand needs a decision, it has to be right. And I need as many viewpoints as I can get. So if you're not aligned with a particular path or a decision or concept, I need to hear from you right away. And I need to be able to have that debate with you to really understand your position. And so it's that productive dispute. It's that real talk environment. And it really is about focusing on what I need to do to make the situation better, regardless of what the problem is. That is our culture of accountability.
I love it. So many are aligned. I always say accountability is asking 2 questions. What did I do to attract this to myself, and what am I supposed to learn from it? And I love the solution side of it, of what you put to it as well. One of the other things I find, really aligned with what I teach is my whole journey started when I learned about getting out of my own way, about what I call the practice of ending fear. And I know that you study the ego like I do. You have strategies, philosophies, disciplines for the ego, and you preach and teach within the culture. We all have to set aside our ego, which is aligned with accountability. Obviously, if we're accountable, then obviously our ego has to be set aside. You have over 1,000 stores, 34 states, extremely successful. That's a lot of egos, right? And you don't have the advantage of, in your military background of being able to make commands on people to do things, right? Which makes the ego very easy to control when we're in the military, although it's still there, obviously. How do you, utilize setting aside the ego as a principle and a discipline within the context of Marco's Pizza?
Yeah. So first, it's about how I measure success. It's an interesting twist. I don't measure my success by what I accomplish. I measure my success by what others are accomplishing. And so if I don't have a team of successful people, that's my responsibility to to at least afford the opportunity for them to be wildly successful. And again, I'm going to go back to some of the cultural beliefs that we have in that real talk environment. If somebody is struggling, if somebody is not successful, it's about one, caring enough to have the tough conversation. It's often like, again, I don't mean this in a negative sense, but we've all been parents, or at least I have. I've raised 5 wonderful children, and you wouldn't let your 3-year-old walk out in the middle of the street, right? You'd pull them back, and they'd be surprised and shocked. You might even give them a timeout or two over their lifetime. But it's not because you didn't love them. It's because they needed to learn a life lesson, right? That was extremely valuable to keep them alive, for God's sake, not just walking out into traffic. Well, if you translate that into the business world, right? A lot of folks are often working hard, their heads are down, they're going through, and sometimes they've got blind spots, unintentional blind spots. And it's our responsibility, my responsibility, to help them see a more of a panoramic view of what's coming, anticipate what might be coming, be a bit more strategic, a little less tactical, but most importantly, be brutally honest with what it is that I think is the root cause of a problem, and then start working on a solution. I'll tell you, when in my years, if I had to terminate somebody, or I've had to terminate a franchisee, I can tell you the one thing that you can be absolutely certain of, that I have had many conversations, and it usually comes down to not being a surprise, right? That it usually comes down to that person agreeing with me that this might not be the thing for them, right? Because we've tried everything and it doesn't work. And so for me, it is about caring enough to be involved. How do you measure your success? And when I say measure your success, it really is more about telling other people's stories and other people's successes. That's how you internalize it. And when you're helping people succeed, the brand's going to win for sure.
So funny. When I think of you and the company, I think of the saying, elevating others to elevate ourselves. And that should be one of the monikers there for Marco's Pizza. What extraordinary real talk playbook, which I really enjoyed. I love your transparency and illumination of how exactly we build businesses in good times and in difficult times. And that's why the cream always rises to the top. Except for your Giants, by the way. And what a
Still
pleasure.
love them.
You gotta love. I'm a Charger fan, so I'm just throwing stones.
Right.
Anyway, what a pleasure it is to learn your playbook and share it with everyone. I'm sure many people will benefit. There's a lot of great bombs and lessons in there, so let's go back and listen to them. Thank you, Tony Libardi.